What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and today's video is all about the Scarlet and Violet era and how the cards and the sets and the prices have been moving month over month. And as you know, we do this every single month, and actually I started aggregating this information a long time, even before Scarlet and Violet was even in existence. And the graph you see right here, or the chart you see right here, if you will, is all about Sword and Shield. And I started this in September of 2023, and the long story short is I aggregate the value of the top 20 singles cards from every single set that is a booster box, and I also aggregate the cost of those booster boxes as well, and then we chart how they move over time. Now, it has been incredibly insightful and a little bit predictive in the Sword and Shield era. You can see right here, I've got some boxes and lines, and I did a whole video on this on Monday, so I'm not going to go into it, but basically what we've been seeing in the Sword and Shield era is the month where a booster box spikes, the following month we see top 20 singles cards spike as well. So the booster boxes seem to be a little bit of a leading indicator as to when singles cards are going to spike. Now, the big thing that I called out in this month's video on Monday was how we saw a huge spike in booster box prices from April to May. And while we saw a huge spike in booster box prices, we saw the top 20 singles cards come down again. So my prediction around that was, hey, listen, I'm not saying we're going to all of a sudden flip to a big positive month, but I do think that the losses are going to start to slow down a little bit. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a, I won't call it progress, but we'll at least call it maybe some stabilization in the Sword and Shield space. But the reason I talked about Sword and Shield before we get into Scarlet and Violet is because we're going to be talking specifically about February, March, April, May in Sword and Shield, and we're going to layer that into Scarlet and Violet because we saw the pattern emerge in Sword and Shield, and the exact same pattern was happening in Scarlet and Violet. Now, that pattern didn't happen in Sun and Moon. It didn't happen in XY. So at least in the short run, it seems like the Sword and Shield and the Scarlet and Violet markets are kind of moving in lockstep. So we're going to take what we learned from Sword and Shield, and we're going to talk about it in Scarlet and Violet. But actually, most importantly, what I'm going to explain to you is why I think Sword and Shield is going to be slowing down in terms of the losses, kind of flattening out a little bit, and why I think Scarlet and Violet still has a little bit of room to drop, which is absolutely an okay thing. I think Scarlet and Violet got really frothy. So throughout the course of this video, we're going to do a comparison on the next slide. Then we're going to look at individual cards. We're going to see how each set's top 20 singles cards moved month over month. It's going to be a ton of fun, tons of information. I hope you find it valuable. And if you do, we do a ton of work behind the scenes here on the Pika Pika Papa channel. So if you enjoy the content, if you find it insightful, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I really appreciate it. So as I said, those are the months that we're going to be focusing on here in the Scarlet and Violet era. So this is what I wanted to call out and put them side by side. Now, obviously, we have to be careful with the way we compare Scarlet and Violet to Sword and Shield because it is now nowhere near a one-for-one, right? Sword and Shield is done and gone. There are going to be no more reprints of Sword and Shield. And Scarlet and Violet, obviously, we are in the heart of some serious reprints. We know that the Pokemon Company International, we've been getting some Prismatic Evolutions ETBs. We know the Surging Sparks booster boxes are coming out, and they have said that there is going to be more of these impacted sets in terms of low demand and high supply. So that's why we have to be careful what we can compare. But here, what I'm looking at is Scarlet and Violet base set and Surging Sparks and the aggregate value of those top 20 singles cards. Journey Together is 2 new. Prismatic Evolutions is 2 new. Surging Sparks came out in November. So I want to make sure that we aggregate those values and see how they've moved February, March, April, May. And as you can see, February, March, both in Scarlet and Violet for those specific sets and in Sword and Shield, the aggregate value of those top 20 singles cards, we're moving in the right direction. February was a monster month for both of these eras, and then March it started to cool off a little bit, and then in April the bottom really fell out in Scarlet and Violet, and Sword and Shield dropped a little bit, but again, remember, like, those sets are way more baked in, so I expect the losses to be a little bit more muted in the Sword and Shield space, right? So it was down 1.23%, and then in May you see again the losses were a little bit less in Scarlet and Violet, but still you're talking about almost 10% down month over month, and then in May in the Sword and Shield space, you see it was down about 5%. Now, because of the reprints, because of the fact that I believe there's going to be more product that's interjected into the system, especially here, for the next 3, 4, 5 months, I have no doubt about it. We're going to have opportunities to buy more product in the Scarlet and Violet space. And because the May drop was so much more significant in Scarlet and Violet, that's why I'm kind of thinking that, hey, listen, even if Sword and Shield doesn't flip positive, I do think that maybe it's negative 1% or 2% next month versus this growing, from 1.23% down to 5% down. I do think we're going to start to see the Sword and Shield drop slow down a little bit. It might be a great opportunity to buy some of those really big chase cards that have been coming down in that space. But Scarlet and Violet, I think we're going to still have a ton of buying opportunities in the future. So with that being said, we're going to look at how the individual sets have moved month over month, because it is just absolutely wild how the losses aren't just they're not focused in any particular area. It's not like the top chase cards are coming down or like the bottom 15 cards are coming down or anything like that. Like, the losses are all across the board in terms of price depreciation. So this is it, and I bucketized it into 3 different slides where we're going to look at what I call, the top third, middle third, and bottom third of sets. And really, all of these sets are awesome, but we're going to start off with the sets that, in the long run, I think will do okay, but probably not as good as some of the sets we're going to talk about further on into this video. And this is Scarlet and Violet, Obsidian Flames, Paradox Rift, Temporal Forces, and Shrouded Fables. And if you look, I have the current price of the top 20 singles cards in the one graph, but that's really hard to see. So I would just focus on the color coding, and you can see just 1, 2, 3, 4 blips of green, and everything else is red. So if the price is negative month over month, it shows red, and if it's positive, it's green. So think about this. This is 5 different sets. This is the top 20 cards from 5 different sets in the Scarlet and Violet era, and we only have 4 green blocks out of all 100 opportunities here. And if you look across the very top line there, there's a lot of big losses in those big chase cards. So Obsidian Flames, the Charizard has obviously been coming down quite a bit. Paradox Rift, the top 3 cards there are down 16, 10, 18%. Get into Temporal Forces, again, you got double-digit losses in 2 of the top 3 cards. So you have a lot of the cards just all over the place in Scarlet and Violet, which is down month over month, which again is another reason why I think that we're going to continue to see more losses. When we've looked at this in the Sword and Shield space, usually we'll start to see a couple pockets of green here and there before the broader market starts to turn up. So let's look at some of the singles cards from these sets that I think are actually pretty darn cool. So it might surprise you to see the Miriam on there. I'm not a huge ultra modern trainer fan. I think that those can be really cyclical, but it's the price point. I mean, this is dropping hard, and it is at $22 right now. This was the first quote unquote chase card of the Scarlet and Violet generation, right? If you remember when Scarlet and Violet base set came out, like, this was the hype card for it. And if it drops below 20 bucks, I'm gonna pick a couple up. This isn't gonna be a $100 card in the future, but as we've seen, base sets can have top cards in the $30, $40, $50 range once they get some age behind them. Plus, I think this is a really cool card, and I love the artwork. So, this isn't a great investment card, if you will, for the long run, but I do think it's got some upside, and under $20, I think is an awesome opportunity. The other couple cards on here, as I said, that Charizard from Obsidian Flames, I am a huge fan of that card. The pull rates aren't abysmal for Obsidian Flames, so there's going to be a decent number of these out there, but the gem rate is incredibly low for Obsidian Flames, which I think is going to keep this card, in high favor for the long run. So then you got the Groudon card over there. Love that card. Did not love it 3 months ago when it was sitting at a $100 price point, but as it continues to come down at $75, what I'm looking for in a card like that is it going to break the $75 mark? Like, that's one of those kind of round numbers where for whatever reason the market might just support it at 75, which would be a good thing. If we see next month it's still holding that $75 line, then maybe this is a great opportunity to get in there. But if not, if it breaks below 75, then it's going to be interesting to see how far it could fall. Could it get to 65? Could it get to 60? I don't think it's going to make it into the 50s, but who knows? And then you got the Morty's Conviction card up there. Honestly, not my favorite card, but I know a lot of people like it. It's got Gengar on it. I don't really like how Gengar should be the focus of the card. You got the words written right over it. So not my favorite card in the world, but when you look at it compared to the other 3 cards, it's actually up over the last 3 months. So I thought that was an interesting call out. You've got the Miriam and the other ones over there, and those are all down well into the double digits. I mean, Miriam's down 34%, Groudon card's down 25%, Charizard's down 16%, and the Morty's Conviction is actually up 7.19%. So that's a good sign for that card. We'll just have to see if the market continues to support it, but I thought it was a really neat call out. Next ones we're talking about, in my mind, and listen, you're splitting hairs when you talk about the top sets in Scarlet and Violet. There's going to be a lot of strong opinions one way or the other, but remember, this includes specialty sets, and we've had some banging specialty sets in Scarlet and Violet. So Paldea Evolved, one of my absolute favorite sets of the entire Scarlet and Violet era. Then you got Twilight Masquerade, you got Stellar Crown, which could easily be in one of the bottom rungs. Like, I love the Squirtle card, I love some of the cards in Stellar Crown, but it just doesn't have that big firepower at the very top as far as I'm concerned. And then you got Journey Together. Journey Together, I think we'll just have to wait and see. You know, I talk about pull rates a lot on this channel, and the pull rates from Journey Together aren't terribly bad, you know what I mean? I think the odds of pulling that Lily's Clefairy is about 1 in every 500 packs, and when you compare that to like the Greninja's 1 in every 900 packs. You think about the Pikachu Special Illustration Rare, that's 1 in every 900 and something packs. So I think the pull rates are going to help keep the Journey Together singles cards somewhat approachable, which is awesome. But again, look at this. I mean, it is primarily red month over month. All of these sets are down. Twilight Masquerade as a whole is down 11%, and Journey Together, again, the newest one on the list, but Journey Together is down 18% month over month. So seeing that set start to settle quite a bit. But the cards I wanted to talk about, you know I love Paldea Evolved, so we're going to talk about 2 cards from Paldea Evolved and Twilight Masquerade. We got 2 cards from that on there as well. I love that Tyranitar card from Paldea Evolved. That is a card, it's at $40 now. Don't be surprised if it breaks the $40 mark. If it gets into the $35 range, I'll be picking some of them up. We've seen that in awesome sets. Tyranitar can obviously hold a high dollar value. We've seen it over the course of Pokemon history, as recently as Battle Styles. That Sleepy T-Tar card's a $200 card. So big fan of this card in the long run. Then of course the Magikarp, I mean that was like the first super special card out of the Scarlet and Violet era. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise, but the artwork's incredible, the gem rate's incredibly low, and that card has been falling. It finally broke the $200 mark, down under $190 now. So it'll be interesting to see how much farther that one comes down. 2 other cards, like the Greninja from Twilight Masquerade. I mean, that was a card, for whatever reason, it just could not drop below 380 for the longest time. It just held on and held on and held on. And now we're finally down below the $300 mark. So it's going to be interesting to see how much farther that card continues to fall, or if it's going to start to find some support. And then the Eevee from Twilight Masquerade as well. This was a card that I highlighted not long ago, and I talked about how it was forming a bit of a support line. And it was another card where I said, I did not love it at $90. I certainly didn't love it at $100, but now that it's starting to find some support right at the $60 mark, like this might be an awesome opportunity to pick up this card. Lots of the versions of this in PSA 10, so you know you would have to do some math and figure out, is it better just to buy it in a PSA 10, or is it better to buy it raw? Just depends on your personal collecting preferences, but I did think it was a cool thing to call out that there is a lot of these in PSA 10s and the prices are pretty appropriate. So next thing we're talking about is, again, what I consider the 4 big sets from the Scarlet and Violet era, and Paldean Fates could certainly be swapped out for Twilight Masquerade or Journey Together or Paldea Evolved, but this was just what I came up with when I was looking at it. And you got 151, no argument there, one of the top sets. You got Surging Sparks, obviously one of the top sets. You got Prismatic Evolutions, obviously when Destined Rivals come out, it will be one of the top ones there too. And Paldean Fates is kind of the wild card as I'm concerned. But still, when you look at all of these awesome sets, again, it is just red across the board. We have very, very few green blocks there, which indicate the price is going up month over month. And I mean, even Surging Sparks, again, it came out in November, so it's a relatively new set, but it is not brand new by any stretch of the imagination. The aggregate value of those top 20 singles cards down 14% month over month. So big drop in Surging Sparks. But again, we're starting to see more Surging Sparks come into the system right now. It was one of the sets that we're starting to get reprinted, and we'll start to see more and more of that product, which in turn will meet the demand, and hopefully the prices will continue to come down. So big takeaways there. But we also have some big cards to talk about from these 4 sets. So you got the Umbreon from Prismatic Evolutions, and this card has been coming down. It's down 17% over the last 3 months. I do like this card a lot. I'm not sure if I $1,300 love it. Matter of fact, I know I don't. But the fact is, the pull rate is the worst pull rate out of all of the cards thus far in the Scarlet and Violet era. It's 1 in every like 1,440 packs. And if you compare that to the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies, that was 1 in about every 2,000 packs. So still much, much easier to pull than that Moonbreon, but still compared to all of its peers, one of the hardest pulls out there. So it'll be interesting to see where this one starts to flatten out, especially with all the Prismatic Evolutions I think we're going to see coming into the hobby here relatively soon. The Charizard from Paldean Fates, love that card. Think that card has a great future ahead of it now that it's down to $175. Again, is it going to start to find that magical support line at $175? Is it going to break that line and come down to $150? No clue. But speaking of a card that I absolutely love, and I actually love these next 2 cards. I love that Charizard from the 151 set down below $200 right now. It's crazy to me. I think that is going to be, I think below $200 is a great price point as far as I'm concerned. I will absolutely be be picking up one, maybe two of these copies over the next couple months as I continue to see what happens with the pricing. But 151's just getting older and older with every passing month. So the reprint window, as far as I'm concerned, for 151 keeps getting closing more and more. So great card, awesome opportunity to keep an eye on it. Then the Pikachu from Surging Sparks, you know how much I love that card. It is finally broken down below the $300 price point, though it does look like it's starting to find a little bit of support, right? Look at that graph. See how it's starting to flatten out just there at the end? It's going to be interesting to see if the market allows it to break below $300. $300 feels like a fair price to me, but again, we have so much opportunity for more Surging Sparks to hit into the market. You just have to be mindful of that when you're spending big money on these ultra modern Pokemon cards. So with that out of the way, that is an in-depth, very long review of Scarlet Violet and what it's done month over month. We will continue to do content like this. We will continue to focus on how the macro levels of the market are moving. And if you had fun with this video, if you enjoyed the content, hit a subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. I hope you have an epic day. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon. See you, everybody. Bye.